Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Oral Reports. So, after blogging Frozen 2 last episode, now would be a good time to look back at the legendary fairy tale that the Frozen films are loosely based on, Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen. Written in 1845, the story focuses on two children, Kai and Gerda, who struggle between good and evil during the winter. This has got to be one of the longest stories from Andersen's library and is also a critically acclaimed hit, so much so that it would be reprinted into numerous illustrated storybook editions for children and be adapted into numerous media projects. Now, a long time ago, before I saw Frozen, during my high school age, I was introduced to the Snow Queen by renting the 2005 BBC musical movie. And ever since then, the story felt very thought-provoking and enchanted, and I've rented and watched several other Snow Queen films, like these. However, the Snow Queen movie that I'll be blogging today is a classic animated adaptation that came all the way from Russia during the late 50s. So, let's get started. Released in Russia on November 20th, 1957, and in the United States on December 13th, 1959, the movie is, well, The Snow Queen. Now, let's get started. Kai and Gerda are best friends. However, the depth of their bond is tested when the beautiful, evil Snow Queen strikes Kai's eyes and heart with shards of ice that make him cruel and cold. After breaking Gerda's heart with his bullying, Kai is kidnapped by the Snow Queen, who takes him to her palace in the far north, where she hopes to erase all his memories and emotions. Gerda's love for Kai motivates her to leave home and find him. She encounters a variety of strange and sometimes sinister characters during her quest. But, can she rescue Kai in time, or will the Snow Queen succeed in turning his heart to ice? So, what do I think of the movie? Well, while I do love Frozen, I gotta admit, this version is very classical. But let's move on to Mustang notes. The film was directed by Lev Atamanov and produced by Soyuzmultfilm Studios in Moscow. The film was re-released with English soundtracks in 1959 by Universal Pictures, as well as 1993, where it was restored by Hove Films, and 1995, where it was shown on television as part of the Mikhail Bereshikov's Stories for My Childhood series. It was later released on video and DVD in 1999. Also to note, director Hayao Miyazaki has stated that this movie is one of his inspirations to work in animation. When he started his career, Miyazaki had a rough start and was thinking of leaving animation. But when he saw The Snow Queen, he admired it and continued working in anime. In September 2007, it was announced that Studio Ghibli would be distributing this movie through their Ghibli Museum Library label and was released in December 2007 in the original Russian audio with Japanese subtitles. As for the animation, well, in my opinion, the animation for the time is pretty good, despite the fact that some of the character models look a tad cartoony, plus the 50s didn't really leave too much of an impact on me as a kid. But I gotta admit, since I can't find the 1955 version anywhere, the 1995 version is very enchanting, and I think the music and songs are very emotional and sometimes haunting. Well, except for the Robbers song, which, in my opinion, sounds very rustic. Plus, a couple scenes with raging blizzards and biting winds is very intense for a movie like this. And I think the part where Kai and Gerda are riding home is a very touching and emotional scene. And now let's move on to the characters and a few of their actors. Our main protagonist, Gerda, is voiced by Kirsten Dunst, who got to be in Hayao Miyazaki's Kiki's Delivery Service, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, Don Bluth's Anastasia, and Tower of Terror. In my opinion, Gerda is a sweet, innocent, and brave girl, and I like that she goes through many challenges to get her best friend Kai back no matter what happens. Next is Gerda's best friend Kai, voiced by Mona Marshall. While Kai is normally a kind-hearted kid who loves Gerda, after he's pierced in the eyes and heart by 2 ice splinters, Kai becomes hostile towards Gerda, and during his stay in the Snow Queen's palace, not only does Kai become colder, but he starts to miss the smell of the flowers back home. Nearing the end of the movie, when Kai and Gerda are finally reunited, Gerda's warm embrace frees him from the Snow Queen's spell. Next we come to our narrator, Ole Lukoya, aka Old Dreamy, or as most folks call him, the God of Sleeping Dreams, voiced by the late Mickey Rooney, whom I remember from Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July, The Year Without a Santa Claus, and A Miser Brother's Christmas. Now, this little guy is said to be a character created by Hans Christian Andersen himself. His job is to gently put children to sleep, and depending on how good or bad they were, he shows them various dreams. You know, Lukoya's role as the narrator kind of makes me think of Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio, due to his size and his umbrella, and the Artful Dodger from A Christmas with Scrooge, due to him being from another classic story. Plus, I think Mickey Rooney's narration is very calm and sweet. Next we come to our villain, the Snow Queen, voiced by Kathleen Turner, who has been Jessica Rabbit from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Constance from Robert Zemeckis' Monster House. In my eyes, the Snow Queen is a very cold character. Plus, while she is very proud and radiant, I think she can also be very manipulative, kind of like Jadis from the Narnia movies, or Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. Now let's move on to the characters who Gerda meets while on her journey, starting with the old fairy. This character lives in a beautiful cottage near the river with a spring garden. Now, while this character is not technically evil, she actually seeks to keep Gerda for herself, so she puts the child in a deep sleep which lasted until autumn. However, after Gerda thinks about roses, she finally remembers Kai and escapes from the old woman's enchantment. Next we come to 2 ravens, Horse and Carson and his wife Karana. These 2 birds work in the princess's palace. Upon meeting Gerda, they believe that a young man who's been engaged to the princess could be Kai, so they help Gerda sneak into the palace in hopes of finding him. Next we come to the prince and princess. Now, despite the fact that Gerda woke them up unexpectedly, when they hear of Gerda's tale to seek out Kai, the prince and princess decide to help her by giving Gerda a golden coach and a few attendants and some food. Our next character is Cheeky, a robber girl voiced by Laura San Giacomo. When her family ambushes Gerda, Cheeky takes her with several other captive animals, which include a fox, several rabbits, a couple doves, and a large reindeer. More on him later, though. Anyway, in my opinion, Cheeky can be very rough and a little threatening with a knife, but after Gerda tells Cheeky about her quest to save Kai, Cheeky gains a change of heart and lets Gerda and the other animals free, though the animals still remain with her. Next we come to my favorite character in the story, the reindeer. After being set free from the robbers, the reindeer offers to take Gerda to the far north to reach the Snow Queen's castle. In my opinion, I think Reindeer is a strong and loyal character, especially when he takes Gerda across snowy terrains, a frozen lake, and through a howling blizzard. The last two characters whom Gerda meets on her journey is a Laplander woman who warms Gerda by the fire and tells her to go to Finland, and we also have her cousin, the Finnish woman, who lives not too far from the Snow Queen's palace. And now let's move on to my final words. Overall, this version of Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen is a classical adaptation, and I think it's also underrated these days. The animation for the time is timeless and fantastic. The story is very emotional, haunting, and thought-provoking. The characters stay true to their book counterparts, and the music and songs are very decent too. Plus, I think several of the English voice actors do a good job. So, if you're looking for a Snow Queen adaptation that's timeless and classical, then be sure to be on the lookout for this movie. Or, if you want, you might also want to look for it on the Stories from My Childhood series, or maybe just watch it on YouTube or Kim Cartoon. As for my rating, I give a full 100%. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to join me again next time, where I take a look at one of my least favorite Christmas movies. And believe me when I say that I've been triple dog dare to do it. Mustang Power.